first Silent Hill game definitely wasn't perfect, and by the end I felt pretty underwhelmed. But it had a lot of great ideas as well as an excellent atmosphere, and it made me excited to see where the series would go next. So for my first game I've ever played on the PlayStation 2, here is Silent Hill 2. It's often considered to be one of the best, if not the best, horror game ever made, and having played through to the end, I can definitely see why. Despite having the same setting as the first game, the story is largely unconnected, and so Silent Hill 2 can be enjoyed on its own even if you haven't played the first game. The story centers around a man named James Sunderland, who has received a letter from his wife telling him to meet her in Silent Hill, a town they once stayed at a few years back before the events of the first game turned it into a ghost town. However, James is slightly confused, as he had thought his wife had passed away from a fatal illness some time ago. But the hope that he might be able to see her again drives him to search through Silent Hill until he finds her, even after he arrives and finds out that it's full of creepy-looking monsters. As far as the story goes, it's a lot better than the first game, as it actually makes sense, for the most part, has a small ensemble of interesting, if not always likable characters, and the pacing is just about perfect, with an ending that really brings it all together in a depressing but ultimately satisfying way. The only real issue I have with the story is with some of the characters, in particular the voice acting. It's better than the first game, but it's still not that great. I've heard some people defend the slightly awkward voice acting, as they say it adds to the feeling of unreality that permeates Silent Hill. And while there is merit to that idea, I still think the game would have been better if they'd gotten really good voice actors. The performances in the game are passable, but they could have been better. When it comes to the gameplay, this is another area where Silent Hill 2 has got some issues. Like the first game, it employs tank controls, and the camera doesn't always behave itself. But neither of these issues were bad enough for me to be deal breakers, as it also carries over what made the first game so good, namely the masterfully haunting atmosphere. You really feel the tense isolation of being stuck in this desolate town. Even the simple act of walking from one place to another can give you this sense of otherworldly dread. A lot of the exploring, puzzle solving, and combat is very similar to the first game, but with the improved presentation it comes off as more real and more creepy. And since this time around you never really know the exact nature of the supernatural force that is tormenting you and the other people trapped in the town, it becomes even creepier. However, another problem that is carried over from the first game is the often cryptic way forward. While most of the riddles in the game can be solved with intuition and clever thinking, some of the solutions are bizarre enough that you'll pretty much have to look it up. And there's one point when you reach Rosewater Park where the game does a really bad job of communicating where you're supposed to go next, leaving you to wander around aimlessly for hours until you either stumble upon the next story event, or if you get frustrated enough to just look it up. One last nitpicky problem are the monsters. Now, the monsters themselves are very well designed, and are effectively creepy and even terrifying at times. But there's not a whole lot of variety. Once you make it to the hospital and have seen the nurse monsters, you've pretty much seen all the kinds of monsters you're ever going to see. This is a little disappointing after the first game, where every new area always had new and different creepy crawlies to fight, which kept the tension up, as you never knew what to expect next. But despite it occasionally annoying or even frustrating me, Silent Hill 2 still manages to maintain its excellent atmosphere through the entire game, and the good parts more than make up for the handful of problems it has. I can't really go into more detail about what makes Silent Hill 2 so great without venturing into spoilers. All I can say is, if you haven't played it yet, you should. This is one game that everyone should play at least once, even if it's just to say that they did and didn't like it. My final score is an 8 out of 10. It's ousted Amnesia: The Dark Descent as my favorite horror game I've ever played, and I've already started on Silent Hill 3. It's pretty good so far, and it's most likely the next game I'm going to review. So what do you think? Have you played the Silent Hill games? Which was your favorite? Whatever you think, be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you like what I do, feel free to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. You stare at the red square. It fills you with determination. Wait, wrong game.